Welcome to Rivendell, Frodo Baggins.
Today we're at Cactus High School for the Arizona Robotics League. Last season, the Arizona Diamondbacks Foundation and Honeywell invested in this playing surface that you see behind me to give first robotics teams in Arizona a chance to practice their skills during their off season. And to come and see it today is absolutely incredible.
The Arizona Robotics League is a place where teams can maximize the use of their resources because it is a free event. All teams get to participate for free, and this is all thanks to our sponsors like the Arizona Diamondbacks and Honeywell.
We are hoping that these events combined with our regular season stuff really inspires the community to keep their programs around for a longer period of time, and we can overall grow STEM in Phoenix and all of Arizona.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our Twitch channel. This is our first Extra Innings episode of the year. My name is Luke Balancio. I am one of the ARL program directors and your host for this evening. We are going to cover the ARL May Qualifier that happened this past weekend at Cactus High School. We're going to take a look at the finals, semifinals matches, maybe a qual or two, and a couple calls. We'll have some chat with our head ref. And I don't know, really happy to be here for another episode. I want to quickly thank our sponsors for this ARL season: Honeywell, Diamondbacks, specifically Diamondbacks Give Back, and 498 Robotics for powering us through another ARL season. Tough. I want to thank all our volunteers, both for this show and for our events. There's a lot of people working in a lot of different areas in the background, and we couldn't be more appreciative of that. And finally, thank the teams. Really important. We had a good start this past weekend, and it's only going to get better. Not to spoil anything, but we have coming up in June our largest ARL qualifying event ever, which is pretty exciting. And so really looking forward to that. And that's it. That's all the things I wanted to cover. All the thank yous, I suppose. Couple quick other things. Actually, just one other thing. If you haven't seen the team list for the Arizona State Championship, the Sangi State Championship, the team list is out. It came out today or yesterday. So if you are curious about those teams, we have that team list available on our Discord and available in the Twitch chat. Should pop in pretty soon. It's a great list of teams. Really looking forward to it in October. But that list is out. We'll deep dive the state championship in a later episode. We did last year. As usual, you can find Arizona Robotics League on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on YouTube. I want to special attention to our YouTube channel. We are currently in the process of uploading all of the matches from the May event, all cut. You'll find all of our past Twitch episodes, and you'll find the full VODs from the event in case you wanted to go back and watch the Alliance selection or our head ref or MC dance around the field for some reason. The VOD is also available there. So I know last year kind of fell off a little bit, but we have some awesome volunteers working behind the scenes during the events. We've added we're clipping the matches as we go rather than trying to do it all at the end. So the matches are uploading as fast as the YouTube will allow. So those will all be available there. So head on over there and drop a subscribe so that you can watch all the matches if you missed the event. And then one last final thing is our Discord. Make sure to join that. There are things that go in the Discord that don't go anywhere else. For instance, we have our ARL standings Excel sheet that's available for you to go look at in the Discord. The link is in there. And that'll show everything broken down, how exactly the points were tallied and the tiebreakers that were used. So if you're interested in that, it's available in our Discord. All you gotta do is join. The standings for the ARL season, just the graphic, we'll have later in the show. But if you really want to take a deep dive, the link to the Excel is available in our Discord. So I encourage you all to join that. With me today are our two analysts, the same two who covered the pre-event, the warm-up. We have our MC Will and slide guy himself, Arheo, joining us again this evening. I will say that we are looking for more analysts. I said this in the last episode. We would love to have the same individuals who cover in the warm-up, cover the post-event during the extra innings. If you're interested in any kind of Twitch production, YouTube production, or an analysis, like watching the matches and then kind of doing a little write-up, or specifically strategy, please reach out to me, Will, or Arheo in the Discord, or you could email me, ArizonaRoboticsLeague.com, or lbalancio at 498robotics.org. You can email me there, doesn't matter where, and let me know. Really, anyone can be interested and help out. We are desperately looking for some new faces around here, and would love to have you on the team. So, without further ado, I'm going to throw it over to Will and Arheo, and they are going to kind of give you a quick little recap of the event, and then we'll take a deeper look into the rankings, both the ARL rankings and the qualification rankings, and some matches. So, Will and Arheo, over to you. Thanks for joining me this evening. Hello.
I think it's fixed.
I can't hear Will because he's muted in Discord. That's tough. Production team behind the scenes. That's okay. Hi, guys.
Hi, how's it going?
Good
Sorry.
night.
Yikes. Good evening. Thanks for having us back. I really appreciate it.
So yeah, let's get into that recap. So last Saturday, the 2023 ARL season kicked off with the May qualifier at Cactus High School in Glendale, Arizona. We saw 8 teams from across the valley who attended and played in 20 qualification matches. After those matches, Team 498 stood at the top with a ranking score of 2.9. Fun fact, that's an ARL record for highest rank score. And because of the low count of teams, we had 4 Phantom robots at play, which meant that all of the elimination matches were a 2v2, just like in the old days of FRC.
A little throwback.
With this changed format, 498 selected Team 2403 Plasma. Team 6413, who was ranked 3rd, picked Phoenix Robotics 6833. This was followed by 7703, the RoboBears picking up 2449. And finally, we had 9986, Degrees of Freedom sister team, picking up 7755, the Phantom Circuits. Throughout the new 4 Alliance double elimination from the 2023 season, the first seed alliance with 498 and 2403 breezed through to the finals, going through the upper bracket. And in the lower brackets, we saw 6413 fight their way back up into the finals, where 498 and 2403 took the victory with 2 finals matches.
Great. Thank you, Arheo. What did you guys think of the first event, like overall?
I had a lot of fun. It was nice to see everyone coming back from champs, seeing everyone get back into it, kind of shake off the rust on the robots. I thought that we saw there were definitely points at which there was a lot of really good scoring, and there was a lot of times during the qualifications where we got to see Plasma and Degrees work together. We got to see Plasma and Cobra work together. So we got to see some actually solid high-scored matches with only 2 offensive robots. I think the high score from the weekend was 119 in finals 1. So that was awesome to watch.
So, Arheo, can you go a little bit more into how the Phantom robots worked in qualification? Because we had 4 of them.
Right. So with 4 Phantom robots, you're going to end up with a lot more matches that feature Phantom robot, and especially in qualifying, than we did last year when we used Phantom. So it's obviously going to create a problem for teams when they have even just 1 on their alliance, let alone 2 Phantom robots, points-wise. So teams who were assigned a Phantom robot were given 1 extra game piece to place anywhere they wanted on the grid, as well as an automatic dock and teleop, which could then be transformed into an engage if your robot managed to also engage.
Yeah, so we got to see a lot of 1 robot alliances start off with kind of some points, and look like they were ahead for a while, and then see them against a 2 robot alliance, especially in those 3 robot alliances where it was another single robot versus 2 Phantom teams where it was like they started with a lot of points and it was the other team just slowly catching up until they surpassed them, or even sometimes we did see a little bit of upsets from that, which was exciting.
It was actually kind of fun to watch it from a strategy perspective, because it created some situations where you could tell the teams were leaning into the fact that they had a ghost robot, right? Like, if after autonomous a team had balanced, they knew that they only needed 1 robot to balance at the end, because the ghost robot was a guaranteed balance, and that's all they needed for the RP. So you would see teams purposely, even though if they had 2 robots on their team still left driving, they would only balance 1 because that's all they needed for the RP, thanks to the Phantom. So while it's less than ideal having 4 Phantom robots, I do say that like it creates situations that you quite literally never see anywhere else. That's kind of fun. And so then how did it work in playoffs? Like, what was the difference there?
So in playoffs, everyone, because it was 8 total robots, so it was 2 robots on each alliance. So the Phantom teams were just not a factor. So they did not contribute to the points. Mm-hmm. So we got to just see 2v2s, which I gotta say, I was talking to Russ the Plasma drive coach, and he was talking about how cool it was to see all these open lanes for the offensive robots. Mm-hmm. How he was like, it's always better to have more robots and to have everyone compete. But it was nice to see that difference in strategy where robots were just shooting past each other. They were able to take have it pick between 1 or 2 lanes. There wasn't a lot of defense. It was a lot of just go for it and score as fast as possible in a lot of circumstances. So that was kind of where it switched up in playoffs for that.
Yeah. I think you're right. I agree with Russ. I think it was very interesting to see like a game that's almost kind of known for like traffic jams like happening naturally. That kind of having the anti-traffic jam scenario was a change of pace. Argeo, let's take another look at the rankings after quals. You said it was the highest RP that we've seen in a qualifying event. What does that mean for the ARL rankings, the championship rankings?
So it has big implications because every half an RP difference, so like 0.5 to 1 ranking score, is an extra 2 points towards your championship ranking. So because 498 was now inside that category of between 2.5 and 2.9, they got an extra 2 points on Team Plasma, who was under that 2.5 threshold. So then even though they were both got the same amount of points from their win in playoff and from their picking position, 498 ends up on top of them at the end of the day because of those 2 extra points.
Yeah, super important. And conversely, that 1 loss that 498 suffered probably put them underneath 3.0, right? So it's another that's 2 points lost. So these are all things that we could see come into play later on in the season when there's a lot of teams tied in the rankings, or a team's up by just 2 points. It'll come down to these RP averages. So very important. So Will, you and I were talking about qualifications as a whole and the overall rankings, right? I think we talked about in our warm-up episode that there were 3 teams that we all saw likely seeding in the top 3, right? We all saw 2403, 6413, and 498. In some way, shape, or form, they were going to make out the top 3. And during this event, it really kind of seemed to come down to 1 or 2 matches, and one of those matches was qualification 9.
Yeah. So I that was where we saw that it was like we had all 3 of our predominant offensive robots. We had Cobra, we had Degrees, and we had Plasma. And Plasma and Degrees were on an alliance together against Cobra, so that's 2 powerhouse offensive robots against another. So they really had the chance to kind of turn the tides and get Cobra to go to 8-2, and that would have affected Plasma to go from 7-3 in the total rankings to 8-2, and that might have shaken up the rankings. That might have changed alliance selection, and it definitely would have changed the season rankings, even if it didn't change the actual event. But what had happened is it was the classic case of a robot that had some can issues that I know that they had can issues in a different match where they were with Cobra, I believe. That was later in the event. But in this one, it was the robot, they couldn't get the drivetrain going. That swerve drive, we all know how tricky it is when there's a single can, the loop gets opened. So, a match that honestly, I think they were favored to win, where they could have really taken over Cobra, and it would have been a lot closer in terms of the rankings. It would have vastly changed like how many points each of those teams would have gotten, because like we had talked about the 2 points for Cobra that they could have gotten could have lost if they had gotten less rank points, and the 2 points that Plasma was so close to getting at 2.3, so they could have gone up to that 2.5 threshold, and then that just kind of like set the tone for the rest of that event, which was, now Cobra's kind of won that match over them. So instead of having it go down to tiebreakers between those 3 teams, it gave them the leg up just because of an unfortunate incident with the can.
Yeah, and I think this match also perfectly highlighted the difference in drivetrains between Degrees of Freedom and 498, because you can just see them cycle so much faster across the field, because they're not having to kind of steer around when they get to their loading station or back when they're in their community. And so they're just doing 2 cycles as DOF is finishing lining up for their first one.
And their open side is closed now, so they don't even have the easiest lane open because Plasma couldn't move. %.
Yeah.
That third ranking point awarded to them.
Oh.
Oh.
$97-56. Red Alliance did get that third ranking point awarded to them. We are going to play one more. We're 97-56.
Well, they didn't have
Red
a Phantom
Alliance
bot.
did get that third
Yeah,
ranking point.
so I mean, they just need a little bit more time. The DOF was caught up with that.
Mhm.
And here come the results. The Red Alliance wins 97-56. Red Alliance did get that third ranking.
Cool. So then qualification ends and we get the alliance pairings. Based on our episode last week, were you two surprised at all by the pairings? How did that shake up? And you know, maybe talk about the strategies that 2403 had in quals and 6413 had in quals and 498 had in quals.
Yeah, I mean, I got it totally wrong last week when I said that there's going to be a DOF and 498 alliance. I don't know. I thought that the high cone and the low cube combo would have worked out a bit better, but at the end of the day, it wasn't the choice they went with. I mean, who can blame them? They won the event, so.
Yeah, I also tried going with a sneaky pick. I was like, maybe this is the Plasma Degrees alliance we've been waiting for. It was not, but I was also surprised at Degrees doing high cones, and then I think it was kind of their up and down performance that led to that pick for Plasma, showing that honestly the King, you know, and we didn't see any supercharged nodes when you score the extra, but I think the game pieces, it's all about the links. So the more game pieces you're scoring, especially, you know, when you're getting the links, you're actually finishing them. I think that's just the more important thing right now is, you know, scoring at the high level. Yes, 5 points over 2 points on the bottom. It's just not comparative right now because the extra 5 points from scoring 3 in a row and the time it takes you to do them. So seeing that Plasma and Cobra alliance, which I didn't think was super compatible, seeing them do really well together, seeing them put up a lot of scores. And if they would have had a third robot, I think that would have changed their max potential because, I mean, they had some good matches. They had 2 over 100 in the finals. To see what would have happened otherwise, it was not something I had predicted. So that was crazy. And seeing Plasma, you know, seeing them use more of all 3 levels, which we didn't see as much in regionals. They were only doing low. Seeing them score the cubes at all levels was cool as well.
So Argeo, so then, you know, 6413 ends up the 3 seed. So then they slide up to the number 2 captain. And with the first pick, they take 6833. What do we think about that pick? I mean, 6833 was the 4th ranked robot there. They had a ton of experience on the field this season. What do you think about that one?
I mean, it was really their best option left on the field. There wasn't a lot of high scoring beyond this top 3. And 6833 has, I mean, they have a proven record as a good defense robot. And they can score. Like, they have the ability to score a decent amount every match. It's obviously not as high as it could be just based on the design of the robot. But I think they made the best alliance they could have based on that field.
Yeah, I will say things just to add on to that, I will say things would have been a lot closer. They would have looked a lot different if it had not been for 6833 Phoenix's manipulator. They had switched to using a piston. They wanted to go with a quicker grabber so that it would open and close quicker using pneumatics, which definitely understand that. And it was, you know, a lot of their first experience getting, because I had talked to them about their decision to switch from using fully mechanical to using the pneumatic claw opener with a piston, and they, you know, saw some struggles all day. I mean, at the very beginning of the event, they were doing 7 cones on the bottom. Like they were turning and burning, so like they were scoring a lot. But that definitely like kind of set it for them. But Degrees being smart enough to remember what they had done at West and what they had done at Los Angeles regionals in defense, I thought that was a good pickup, definitely.
Cool. So let's jump into one of our playoff matches. Let's go to semifinal 3. So this is when, just to kind of, if anyone wasn't there and they, you know, get a little bit of the vibe or the storyline that was going on. So semifinal 3, both the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed, as Argeo said, they win their first matchup. So semifinal 3, round 2, match 3 on the screen in front of you is going to be our number 1 seed versus our number 2 seed.
One!
Yeah, and so I mean, here in Autonomous is really the first mistake that the Blue Alliance makes. Degrees of Freedom isn't able to get up on the charge station and get an engage out of that, which is going to hurt them later in the match, because now they're down by 3 times as many points. So then from here, this match showed off just how strong the Plasma and Cobra Alliance was, because as you see the Red Alliance going to score together, 498 gets a cone stuck inside the robot. That had been an issue happening to them all day, but it just kept coming up in the playoffs. And Cobra makes an incredible recovery from that. They switch immediately to defense, and that changes the tide for this, because now all of a sudden it's a 1v1 in terms of high scoring, like high level scoring, and so Degrees of Freedom could come out of this on top if it wasn't for that defense where they're just getting slammed all over the place and they're stuck on their half of the field. They can't get to their game pieces, and so it's kind of locks them. Right.
A33 with a loose USB cable as their alliance partner 6413 carefully placing a cone down onto the grid. We have one red robot ready to go up. Plasma Robotics lining up as well. Blue Alliance, will we see level? We are level on red. Will we get a double-double here on the field? 6813 trying to level just in time, and they are short of that level charge station. We'll be right back with your final scores in just a moment. And your scores. The Red Alliance taking the victory with a score. Welcome to match number 4.
Luke, I think you might still be having audio. It might just be every scene.
Okay. Hello. Sorry, I'm back. I'm here. I think I can be heard now. Sorry about that. So let's just jump to semifinal 4. Everything reset. Jump semifinal 4. I really want to take a look at this match personally because I think it's not going to be the first time that we see this during the season. It won't be the last time that we see this during the season. So our matchup here is a 3 versus 4. We have robots on both sides, but no one aside from 7703 really has a working end effector, arm manipulator, whatever you want to call it, for pieces, right? So 22449 kind of has something, but they mostly just push the pieces. And then between 9986 and 7755, they are also just pushing, kind of playing hungry hippos. And I really want, like I said, I want to take a look at it because I don't think it's the first time that we're going to get alliances like this, both mostly in quals. And I think there's a lot we can actually take away from it, right? So in the beginning, we see the autos are relatively the same. Blue has a slight edge because they had 2 robots cross that middle line, right? So right away, we can see the value on just having something that drives could be very slowly across the line, right? It's very important. 7703 is able to get this piece up into the middle, midsection for the cube. At the end of the day, I actually don't think that cube matters at all. In fact, my suggestion here, and Will kind of alluded to it earlier, is that links are king. So, which for the record, I don't know if anyone just saw that. What a shot over here, over the bridge on the red side. Look at that cube, rolls right in. I bet everybody missed this the first time around. It's pretty awesome. Right where they wanted it, exactly. So I think the links are king here, right? So that 7703 does score that cube in the middle area, but there's really no way to follow that up. And I think maybe their effort would have been better served to drop that low, and then they can get that link. 2449 here drives the red team into their zone, and then the red team has a hard time getting out. In matchups like this, you really, really want to play as far away from penalty zones as possible, because one penalty can tilt the whole thing out of whack, right? Right now, the lead for the Blue Alliance is pretty marginal. I know that one of the Red Alliance robots was having difficulty getting out of their own community this match, so that it was a very tall task for the surviving robot to get pieces across the field. But I think that gaining penalties doesn't help very much. Doesn't help the situation. So really, by the end of the game, the Blue Alliance only gets a few pieces in. The Red Alliance gets real close. They have a piece. Like, if any of these pieces gets pushed into the right spot for the Red Alliance, right, they complete that link, and the score gets a heck of a lot closer, right? Because the Blue Alliance doesn't actually complete their links anywhere. They actually score 1, 2, 3 pieces, but no link is scored. And the Red Alliance also doesn't score their link. But if you can imagine, the Red Alliance puts their piece, in the link completion area, the score gets a lot closer. But I just want to take a close look into this one. I think the beginning of this match, I think it's very bold that both of them put cones on the field, because in my experience, cones are a lot harder to push around than cubes. So my advice there is to load up your field with as many cubes as possible. And in the beginning of the game, just drive and try to kick as many towards your side as possible, right? Go into the other team's side of the field and kick theirs over as well. You can see that these cones are still there. Like, they eventually get pushed to the sides, but it's really hard to kind of get the cones in a place where you want them. So I think maybe cubes are a little bit better for that. I know they bounce away a little bit more, but I think that in general you have a little bit easier time pushing things around. And then the big things are the links in the balancing, right? Blue Lions gets 2 balances at the end of this game, plus 20. That's really impressive. Red Alliance, right? They definitely are missing that. So,
because even if they had gotten the 1 game piece, that's a 7-point swing. The end of this would have looked like 23, to 23, because because they would to 15, and so it would have been a lot closer. They would have gotten the end game park, or if both Degrees 2 and Phantom Circuits had worked, they match them with the 20, then that would have looked a lot different. Mm-hmm. I do know that as far as with 2449 is being driven by Phoenix 2, so that was their first competition driving that robot. So I did think that was really cool to watch them just continuously get better. And I think they had new drivers on there as well. But the reason why their claw it wasn't working is because it was missing a pneumatic piece that they had then put on the other robot, which was pretty good low cycler throughout the season. So they weren't able to run both manipulators at the same time. So it'll be cool seeing them kind of iterate on another robot, on another team's robot design, and see if they get that manipulator working. But with that low strat of just, I think they spend a lot of time hitting into each other and playing that defense, when I think, like we talked about, the low links, hurting them. That's why cutouts and frames are just famously, not a cutout in frames, but that 9-inch cutout in your bumpers, so that you can control it passively without, having to do much more than just that. I think goes a long way to solve something like this and control it more, because we see 2 game pieces double scored, that aren't gonna, affect them. That could easily be an extra 2 points or help contribute to link.
Right.
And
Yeah, I mean, it's for sure. It's really hard to turn a piece with a bumper, right? It's like really hard, especially if tank drive. But yeah, we just wanted to quickly touch on this one because we think it's maybe not the first time there's gonna be a matchup like this. So if you think that maybe your robot is I don't know its game plan is kind of like this at the moment, yeah, maybe consider modifying your bumpers a little bit to add a little bit of a cutout to help with that. This match is on our YouTube, so you can go back and you can watch and maybe you can extrapolate some own strategy changes that you would use. I think that maybe with 3 robots on the field, definitely one of these is playing defense, and definitely defense again. Like if one of these teams dedicated themselves to like match starts, I'm going to go push the pieces as far away from everybody as possible, just around the field, right? As soon as a game piece gets pushed into a wall, right, kind of like this one over here in the middle of the field, like it's kind of impossible to really maneuver it somewhere, right? So something like that where if you think you're down, your pushing team is a little down on firepower against another pushing team, spending the first 5 to 10 seconds of the match just driving all the pieces to the sidewalls would, specifically the one out wide by the feeding lanes, right, would kind of make the other team's strategy a lot harder to execute. So, okay, so moving right along, let's just hop in and talk about our last 2 matches of the event, Finals 1 and Finals 2. Will, I'll let you take Finals 1. I think maybe this is our one question for the head ref that we had at this event. Maybe it just needs a little bit more clarification, and we have that for you guys. So let's go through the match, and then we can follow up with Joshua.
Yeah. So this is the Finals 1 match, which is between the number 1 seed alliance. So it's that Plasma and Cobra pairing against the Phoenix and Degrees of Freedom pairing. Phoenix, of course, playing some staunch defense against the Red Alliance in this case with the blue tape on their bumpers. I thought Degrees actually came right out the gate. They get their 2 cones. They're kind of going over the center. I don't know what kind of made them, fear going towards that open side, but I think they're just practicing going in one lane and coming out the other way. But they're getting links. They were doing great to start. Cobra and Plasma are also like firing on all cylinders. I mean, they're just scoring. And so it's admittedly not close, but it is 1 offensive robot against 2 offensive robots, even with the defense of 6833, who at times did play a little close to the red side. Now this part, this is
we'll get
kind of the
right. We'll get to it. Yeah.
Point we'll talk about is the part where they fall. But I would say that offensively, this is definitely, in my eyes, probably the best Cobra and the best Plasma match. I thought Plasma, they're clearing out the bottom completely. I thought it was, we're seeing more than 2 cones from Cobra. They're, they had 1 fall earlier, but then they did get this last one in the middle. So they're just like both just, doing an amazing job. And it'd be crazy to watch this with, if they're scoring on the high row and seeing the difference in points that would be. But I mean, for ARL, I think this is a fantastic match that people can look on from that offensive standpoint in terms of how well they were scoring. And Degrees was doing great. I mean, they were doing great before, they fell over.
I think it's important. I think it's important to note that this is kind of the beauty maybe of the double bracket, right? The double limb bracket is that this is the second time that these teams have played each other, right? And in the first matchup, which we watched and we talked about, was kind of a 2v2 offense, right? Like that was a strategy. Blue Alliance was just going to run their offense fully cooking, right? And Red Alliance was just going to run their offense fully cooking, and except for until 498 jammed, right? So in this case, we see right off the bat that we kind of do the opposite. In fact, Red just goes, not Red, sorry, they're in red bumpers, but 6833 goes right for defense. They go right to the line, right where they should play. I think that's a great call. Either that was, their call on the defense, or it was a great call from Degrees of Freedom that this is kind of with an area where you want to play. And I think it's a fun counterplay because when this match starts, if you watch right when this match starts, I don't know. Okay, you can't super tell, but they stacked all their cones like on their tips because this match clipped late, but they stacked all their cones on their heads, and when this match starts, 498 takes the long way to the human player lane to knock these cones on the ground, which ended up just being a complete waste of time, right? Because I don't know if it was like on purpose a bait, but it was. And so 6833 doesn't even try to go for them, right? Doesn't go for them at all. And they go right for the middle line. So it kind of just wasted time for the Red Alliance. So I think I applaud the use, a good use of the double limb bracket, right? They know that they've already tried strategy A, it didn't work. What's the harm in going with strategy B, seeing how it plays, and then we go again in the next match, and maybe we go back to A, we stay with B, we go to C, right? So I think that's really cool. I think it's the fun part of the double limb bracket.
Definitely. And I think Phoenix also just like I do just want to like give them props for how well they were playing against Plasma, because when they were rolling against this, they're parking right in front of them. Plasma tries to push through them. Plasma rolls off. They roll with them, and then right when they're getting pushed towards the community of the Red Alliance, they do roll off. They drive away. They get right back to that center line, and I thought they were at a lot of points really disciplined and did a great job against Swerve.
Right. I mean, the against the Swerve is the impressive part, right? They get kind of stuck, a couple times for a few penalty calls, and I don't know if those penalty calls would have necessarily been the difference maker, but it's really hard. I hope everyone watching and in the stands can grasp how hard it is to play defense with a tank drive when the other team is Swerve, right? Because you're really trying to make up for both a speed difference and a maneuverability difference. So there's something that goes into it, right? There's a lot of like guesswork. You're trying to guess where they're going to go because you have to make the first move almost. And if you make the second move, it's like I'm showing in this, right? When, where is it? They make the move after Cobra, right? So Cobra comes out and they try to follow. It's too late, right? Bless you to somebody.
Sorry
right.
about
So
that.
no, you're good. Sly guy with the sneeze. Right, so it's really difficult to play defense against a Swerve robot as a tank, and so I think they had definitely a valiant effort, for sure. So, all right, let's hop in. So, for those who missed it the first time around, up in the top part of your screen, you're gonna have two robots collide, right? Boom, and unfortunately, Degrees ends up on their side. So this is with about 50 seconds left in the game. And so we didn't want to, we know that typically at a robotics event, right, this happens, and then there's a lot of discussion by the desk, and then the final scores go up, and there's a lot of question marks. So what we are going to try to do this season is if something like this happens, or any kind of weird or, new, maybe not normal calls in general, we're going to reach out to our awesome head ref Joshua, and we're going to try to get maybe a little insider look or an explanation that we can then share with you on this show. So I'm actually sitting with Joshua right now. Hi Joshua, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate your time. I think Will actually is going to speak for you here, but we asked Joshua, and he sent us a message. He can't be here. He's busy today, but he'll be here for the next one.
If he wasn't like traveling, he would have been here for sure. But
listen, I just wanted an excuse to show off our new interview overlay that I haven't used yet. But this is it. So Joshua, thank you for joining us.
He literally just, by the way, mid show was like, actually, it's G this. Can you update it? And I was like, yes, I can.
Always working.
So this is directly from Josh, our wonderful head ref. So we definitely appreciate him chiming in on this. So I'm just going to read it verbatim. Wow, what an intense matchup during the season's first ARL finals. During Finals 1, 498 and 6413 met just outside of the blue community, with approximately 54 seconds remaining in the match. Both teams appeared to be executing strategies focused on scoring and were each headed on the shortest path between their respective loading zones and communities. After initial collision, that sends both 498 and 6413 off their wheels, 498 seems to find control slightly sooner and continues into the direction of their community. When the second hit occurs, 6413 begins to ride up on 498's bumpers. 498 can be seen attempting to move away from 6413 and even coming to a momentary stop. G206 uses the word deliberate as a threshold for determining if the penalty shall apply. Additionally, G206, Blue Box Example C, covers this situation in detail and relies on the determination of if the tip could have been avoided after a robot begins to tip. Both by my official decision and reviewing the video after the event led me to the conclusion that 6413 tipping was an unintended consequence of normal robot-to-robot interaction, and although the outcome was regrettable, G206 does not apply. Although the outcome was regrettable, all teams are encouraged to clearly back off, regardless of direction, when their opponent shows signs of beginning to tip. G206 calls are difficult for refs to determine, and teams should demonstrate the spirit of cooperation on and off the field.
Heck yeah. Amazing. Like, honestly, great explanation.
It was like a novel.
It really was. And you read that very well. I listen, I was actually not there when this happened. So, but I've been, behind the glass on a lot of many drive teams for a number of years, not to date myself. But I really appreciate Joshua taking the time to write that. I think that having maybe a look in and a better explanation from the referee's point of view can go a long way into a greater understanding of things. And honestly, one of the harder calls to make in all of FRC is that specific interaction, right? There's a lot of in the moment decision, right, that you have to, things with like intent and stuff like that. So I don't envy the decision the team has to make, so I appreciate Joshua taking time to write that explanation, and so well, might I add. Okay, so this is the final score after match 1. So now, Arheo, why don't you take us home and take us through finals match 2?
Well, after such an eventful match, it was nice to have a fairly standard match in finals 2, penalty-wise. And here you can see that both alliances do a much better job in autonomous. That balance from the Blue Alliance makes it a lot closer between the two, even though they are still behind. And from here, it just becomes a repeat of the first match, just with less collisions. It was good to see 498 decide to switch up their strategy before finals 1, and they stuck with it here, where they started to do more cubes first before they start doing cones to kind of delay any issues that might come out of that. And so you just see them cycle back and forth, and with Plasma on a sort of delayed loop, so that they're always scoring. There's somebody in that community at all times. And I think that it's somewhere where the Blue Alliance gets left behind because 6833 can't score they can't cycle as fast as Degrees of Freedom can. So Degrees of Freedom has to do most of the heavy work, and they leave that space open with no scoring for large periods of time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Here's what I'm so distracted with the watch these matches back. So in this match, the Blue Alliance puts their cones base side down, and 6833 starts offense immediately. I think there's some kind of mind games. There was some kind of mind games happening with the Blue Alliance.
I do have insight as to why those ones were not upside down, being very close to the field reset team, and it's because they kept falling down.
Oh, okay.
And another volunteer said they wouldn't fall down if they were standing up. So that did happen.
That's fair.
Yeah, they basically were like, it'd be fun, but we'd rather work on our robot for more of this timeout. So that's definitely what they picked instead of balancing the cones. But yeah, that was but I thought for a second in the last one with the upside down cones, they were just going to kick them towards the red community.
Right. Yeah, maybe.
It definitely got me.
I think,
I'd like to believe it was mind games.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we see Degrees in 6833 going back to strategy plan A with maybe a little bit different routing. I think that 6833 nails that low link. I think that's perfect, right? They're kind of focusing on the links. You know, I kind of agree with kind of what we said. It was curious to see, and I would love to maybe get some insight in the Discord afterwards from the Blue Alliance, but I wonder if it has to do with 6833 not being able to go over the bump or the bridge with a cone. But we definitely see the Degrees making a concerted effort to not use the open lane and instead go over the bridge in the bump, and it kind of backfires on them a couple times, or at least what we just saw, they go over the bump and the piece falls out of their manipulator. But I mean, to their credit, 6833 is kind of on fire here with the low pieces by leaving that lane open. So I'm guessing it was a trade-off, and 6833, right, in Degrees of Freedom, you know, they like to kind of just keep filling this bottom area and go for the links, and I think that's maybe a great wise choice. So it actually is a combo of strategy A and B. So they really did go with strategy C here, and I think, you know, I think that's really great to see that teams are like they evolve their strategies throughout the finals. I think that oftentimes in playoffs we get hyper focused on the higher scoring alliance, right? In the alliance that ends up winning, because I think that's the easy route and it's obvious, right? You're just watching the team score more. But I think it's very fascinating to take a look at the team that, you know, is the lower powered alliance or the lower seeded alliance at least, and how they change their strategy throughout the playoffs. And in this case, Degrees in 6833 changed their strategy three times differently every time. And I think that's really cool. That's really fun from a strategy guide perspective.
I've been holding it in. I did really want to ask you this, Luke. You and I have been to honestly an embarrassing amount of regionals between the two of us, if we're being honest.
Sure.
I call it experience.
Why don't you say I'm old?
That's impressive. We've both been in this sport for a long time.
Okay.
We're like a year apart. But so, have you ever seen just a grit from a team so much so that their main manipulator breaks, and yet they're still effectively scored? They scored 6. They scored 6 cones in that match with a manipulator that was not working. They were playing defense last time, and they said, "We'll make it work." Like, that is insane, and that's the ARL. That's that ARL spice right there. Is that a team is like, we're just gonna make it work.
Yeah, you know, here's what I'll say. I think 6833 did an amazing job, and I think this is actually one of the cooler things about the FRC in Arizona is that our teams like don't quit, or, you know, and they're not content, right? So like, I think that 6833 definitely gave it, right, you're right, gave it everything they had to the last match, and even when like, and that's what's fun about FRC, right? The creativity and kind of working with what you got and seeing them adapt. When I'm watching these VODs back, seeing them adapt and Degrees adapt throughout all of these matches is really cool, honestly. Like, really, really cool. I think a lot of times, and especially in regionals, you'll see teams like that lose the first match, just run the same strategy back the next time, and they're kind of hoping that maybe the other team malfunctions or their defense is better, or, you know, something breaks, right? But the number 2 alliance this entire event, like, you know, this playoffs, like they legitimately brought 3 different strategies to the table, and I think that's really cool. And part of that, you're right, is 6833's versatility, right? They're able to go from, you know, a low cycler to a defensor to some kind of Frankenstein cycler that, you know, with using what they had left on the robot. You know, at first ARL, after the season ends, it's kind of a slow start for a lot of teams. You know, not a lot of teams have had time to meet and maybe make changes to their robots, or they're just dusting off the cobwebs, as you guys put earlier. So I think it's a valiant showing, you know, to say the least.
And those two 68-33 drivers, both a driver and operator, that they're seniors who were significant part of the build season, because I was talking to them at the competition, who had never driven the robot. So then they came in on Friday to make sure to get lots of practice. And so it was like their regular season driver and the regular season operator were like in both of their ears, like telling them what to do. And they were just like rolling with it. They were like smiling. They were like, oh my gosh. And they were
That's
like,
awesome.
let's win this. So it was awesome to see them win a lot of games that way.
That's awesome. Well, it is, we are nearing the end of our episode here. We're going to go a little over our hour. We have a couple more things to take a look at. The first of which is going to be our ARL Championship rankings. So after our first event, these is our top 7. There's actually a top 8, but the crop, because Slide Guy / me, I'm going to take the blame for this one. The crop is not showing the team number 8. But after the conclusion of the May qualifier, let's call it the top 4 ranking teams that we just saw: 498 with 48 points, 2403 with 46 points, 6413 with 35, and 6833 with 35. It's important to note, to call back to the fact that the reason 498 and 2403 are separated is because their qualification ranking score, that RP average, 498 had a 2.9, which is above the 2.5, right? And 2403 had below a 2.5 with a 2.3. And that is the only thing separating the two. So we can see already how important just those little itty-bitty RPs, every single RP in the ARL season matters. It really does, especially if you're vying for that top spot. If you would like to see a breakdown of exactly the point calculation, there is an Excel available. The link is available in our Discord, and you're welcome to join that. And then you can open up the Excel, like go to the Google Excel, and you can see the full breakdown and any tiebreakers that were used. So for example, 6413 and 6833 are tied with 35 points each, which means they are tied. But 6833 is ranked 3, and Argeo, Slide Guy, can correct me if I'm wrong, but my guess is that is because they have a higher match score, like they have a higher high score on the season for one of their matches, which is why they're ranked 3, and 6833 is ranked 4. Yep. Next, we have the results from our first ever ARL Top 5. This is a user voted, so thanks to everyone who took the time to vote this week. It will be live again. It will be live still. It'll continue to be live until the next episode of our show, the warm-up for the June event. And we'll go over the top 5 and see if there's been any changes if more people vote. But after the May event, the Arizona top 5 are as follows, kind of in ranking order. 498 number 1, 2403 number 2, 6413 number 3, 6833 number 4, and 7703 number 5. Congratulations to the teams ranked in our ARL top 5, the first ever, and we'll continue to track that as the season progresses. The one final bit of information I have is to remind everyone that our next show is actually a workshop. It is the first workshop in our ARL Workshop Series. This season, the ARL Workshop Series is being held on Twitch rather than in person. Our first workshop is presented by Team 498 and is Scouting, Pit Scout to Pick List. It is a workshop that covers everything you need to know about paper scouting. And so we highly encourage anyone who maybe doesn't have a full scouting team yet or a small scouting team to attend and learn about how 498 approaches scouting, specifically paper scouting. This will be coming up soon. And if you want dates of upcoming events and upcoming shows, if you look below the Twitch video right now into the About section of the page, you will have the full schedule down there. Alrighty, that'll just about do it for us this evening. Thank you to Will and Argeo for joining me and analyzing and taking the time out of their day to talk about the matches. We had a really great time this past weekend at the ARL May Qualifier. I honestly, I can't wait for the June one. I don't want to put an exact number on it, and then it's kind of awkward if some of the teams drop off. But as of right now, we have our most ever teams registered for the ARL June event. And then we have the most ever teams registered for the July event. And then we have the most ever teams registered for the August event. So I know that the ARL May qualifier was a little bit of a slow start with 4 Phantom teams, but we're really going to take off starting in June. So I highly encourage everyone to come out. If your team hasn't registered yet, there's still time. You can register all the way up until the night before. It's free and open to the public, so we can't wait to see everybody there at the next one. Thank you again to everyone in the chat. Thank you again to my guests tonight. Thanks again to Joshua for, you know what? Let's look one more time at this funny picture of Joshua that he sent me. He sent me. Thank you to Joshua for that write-up on that call. I think that was a really cool thing that I hope to continue to do in the future. Maybe next time with a moving face. Haha, it happened again. I caught it. Hi, you can hear me. You can hear me again. Okay, these are our next month's events. June 21st is going to be our ARL warm-up episode. The extra innings, this episode will be available June 28th. And then the next qualifier is June 23rd and 24th. As a reminder, if you would like to compete, you do not have to load in the 23rd. You can load in the morning of the 24th. So please, even if you are out of Phoenix, give it a good thought. Try to convince someone to drive you down with the robot, or just come and watch. We'd love to have you. So I'm going to leave this up as we close. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us tonight. See you on our socials, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and on our Discord. Till next time, thank you all, and good night.
Whom do you serve?